The Split Mountain area here, we're talking about a lot of the different geology. Specifically, we do have a feature that's probably one of the most photographed features here in the canyon, and that's the Split Mountain Anticline. Now, the anticline, by definition, is a fold that by either uplift or by compaction, the different stratas of the folded material becomes a rainbow shape, sort of like an upside-down horseshoe. And we have this rainbow shaped here as a direct result of compaction from a rock type. It's called chaotic breccia, which is off to my left here, of material that was so dense that came into this area possibly a million years ago or a little less, when this area was fairly close to the Gulf of California near shore. So this might have been a beach or a near lagoonal formation out here. But this dense material came and pushed its way into the soft material, and as it continued down by its own weight and momentum, it forced the softer sandstones that make up the anticline here to compact like an accordion, pushing this way, and or in this case, the predominant force was pushing and forced the somewhat pliable sandstone layers to fold to accommodate this change in volume by this intrusion of this massive chunk of mudstone today. But in its time, it was part of a much larger mass of material that covered the region here as a massive mud flow. We see that this accommodation of space has reshaped all these sandstone layers, and as you look up and above me, you'll see that the sandstone layers are even more tightly folded, almost to a point of folding over on itself. When this happened, it probably occurred very quickly, and when it did, the process of all that compaction came, compacted the rock, and then stopped. And this stuff has remained frozen into this formation ever since, to be exposed as this area became uplifted later in time. Floodwaters coming through the canyon and exposing the cliff faces, and now exposing the Split Mountain Anticline as this feature that is probably the most photographed feature in Anza Borrego State Park. But it's nicely accessible to people. They can drive in here and park right next to it and marvel at the amount of stress, the amount of force, the amount of energy that had been expended to create this thing as quickly as it did. Well, we got the soft sandstone here, and you see the grain on this is pretty even. So the material here had been slowly being deposited, probably in a watery environment for a long, long time, creating nice horizontal layers. But eventually, the material didn't come back in here, so we get different layers of sandstone. But when you look at the sandstone, they tend to be pretty much the same size, which would indicate that the environment didn't change all that much. Perhaps the water that was bringing it into this watery near-shore environment was intermittent as far as being the carrier and providing the source material, the sands here. But it's all about the same size material. And all this probably helped to create and maintain the form of the accordionally compacted sandstones when the intrusion occurred with the chaotic breccia. So we're looking at this close-up here of the chaotic breccia. Breccia, by definition, chunks of different rock fragments that have been glued together by all these smaller, probably mud and mud mixed with silt and sand and clay and other rock pieces. And because of the angular nature of the pieces, it tells us that this material was carried away from its original source, but it wasn't carried very far, or if in the case of a mud flow, it could have been carried 20 miles away, but it was carried as a unit. It's much like picking up the island of Manhattan and moving it to France as an island. All the buildings are still intact, more or less, and there it is. So that one wonders, well, did Manhattan get built in France? No, it got transported there as a unit, rafted over there by tremendous geological forces. In the case here, gravity and water flow underneath, or possibly even air, created a cushion that allowed this mud flow of massive size that cover this Fish Creek area to literally come as giant pieces and raft over to the area here, settle, and once it's settled, the pieces broke apart, and in this particular case here, this particular chunk settled in the nearshore environment, which pushed directly into the soft sandstones, which compacted and accordioned the sandstone formation that we see in the other shot of the Anticline as a reaction to the intrusion of this massively dense chaotic breccia. So if we're separating the chaotic breccia here and the sandstones here, the contact zone is right along in here, and you can see the difference of the rock type, which indicated where the breccia intrusion pushed into the existing sandstone layers right along in here. And it's fairly clear when you look at it closely because the rock types are significantly different from each other. The Split Mountain Anticline.